I think a lot of the disagreements we have in our society, although they're political, I think they're actually much deeper than that. I think they're kind of philosophical. I think there's a philosophical, different approach about how the universe is the way it is, what we believe about the nature of society and really the nature of the universe. Because I think some people believe the universe is a moral place, like they believe in a naturally moral universe. And what that means is a belief that good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. That means if you see someone who's poor, you say, oh, they must be lazy because bad things happen to bad people. Or if someone's homeless, or they must be an addict. It must be because of a failure they have, the reason that they're homeless. Or someone's a refugee or asylum seeker. Or they must be a bad person, they must be a terrorist, they must be a criminal, they must be kind of seeking a lazy life, something like that. It comes up again and again and again. It's this fundamental belief that if someone is in trouble, if a bad thing is happening to a person, if they're in a bad situation, it must be their fault. It must be their fault. It must be some kind of punishment for them. You see it a lot. I heard it when someone was talking about the Hillsborough disaster, not at the time back in the 80s, but the kind of public inquiry that was there where it came out, all the stuff that it wasn't the football fans' fault that all this stuff happened. It was the fault of the police in the stadium and all of that came out. But someone still said, oh, I'm sure it must have been the fans. They must have been doing something. They must have been up to no good, even though the whole process was proving the opposite of that. But that belief that it must have been something they were doing wrong was the reason those people died. It's a really seductive belief. We want to believe it. Lots of people want to believe it. Why? Because it's comforting. If you're doing okay, it's comforting to think you're doing okay because you're a good person. And bad things happening to bad people because they're bad. Like the alternative way of looking at the world is to believe the universe is sort of random. Actually, the universe is sort of random and bad things can happen to anyone and bad things happen to good people. Like bad things happen to good people. And if nothing terribly bad has happened to me, if I'm not homeless, if I'm not really struggling in poverty, if I'm not a refugee and asylum seeker, that's luck. That's just bloody dumb luck of where and when I was born, of all things that have happened to me in my life, of any privilege I have because of where and when I was born. It's just luck. It's just totally random why I'm not homeless. That's true. It's totally dumb luck why I'm not homeless. And that is terrifying. That's why we don't want to believe that. We don't want to believe it because it's terrifying. It's terrifying that I'm okay because of luck. And tomorrow, my luck might run out. Tomorrow, I might be struck down with something. Something might happen that will make me homeless. These things can happen. That's much more terrifying than believing because I'm basically a good person, basically good things are going to happen to me and everything's going to be all right. Jesus makes a kind of the total opposite point around this. He is not of the belief in the moral universe because he says this phrase, blessed are the poor, which is the opposite of blessed are the rich. If you're doing well, you're moral. If you're rich, you're doing successful, you're okay. That's because you're blessed. There's a kind of a theological, a spiritual blessing that you have. He's like, no. The poor, the oppressed, the people in trouble, they're the ones who are actually blessed. It's because the universe is random. And the way you are and how you're doing is not a reflection of how moral or good or holy or whatever you are in society. So actually, if you believe in a random universe that basically shit happens, I always come back to that as one of the most profound religious teachings we have to get our head around. Shit happens. If you can, get that, you're doing well in the spiritual life, right? because shit happens, we have to have a moral response to it. We have to say, oh, let's, look after someone who's sick, someone who's homeless, someone who's a refugee or asylum seeker, because, oh, something bad happened to them. And, it could happen to me. It could happen to me. It's a bad thing. So let's live in a society and have structures in society where we look after people if bad things happen to them. That's the moral response to a random universe. But the immoral response to a belief in a moral universe is that if someone's in poverty, if someone's in trouble, it must be their fault. It's a kind of a punishment. Doing well is my reward for how good I am, and them doing badly in whatever circumstances is a kind of a punishment because of who and what they are. It's a belief in a moral universe that makes us immoral. It's a convenient belief that stops us having compassion towards people. So I think a lot of when we have these political arguments about the nature of our society, we really need to keep going back down to that one point. We're not arguing about this policy or that policy. That's kind of the surface level. What's going on here is that you don't believe bad things happen to good people. Therefore, you think there's something suspicious about this person if they're in trouble. And that's wrong. It's just wrong. And if you think about it enough, you have to realize that that's wrong, because we know that random bad things can happen to us, that we can get cancer tomorrow, that we can get run over tomorrow, that we could be disabled tomorrow, that we could be homeless tomorrow, that shit happens. If we get that idea, if we understand it, then we can begin to build compassionate structures in our society that look after people. But that's the difference. Understanding blessed are the poor, maybe those in trouble are most holy, most moral. Understanding we live in a random universe. Therefore, our society and our response is to be moral, is a compassionate response to a random universe.